Ready or not, ready, ready or not. Oh, gonna find. All
Welcome
right, all
to our
right. Welcome.
episode. Hear echo? You said you hear echo? Can you
Okay,
hear
I
me?
can hear you. Mhm.
All right. Well, welcome to our second episode, Sister Spill. So tonight, what we'll be talking about is the transition zone, navigating through life's changes. So last week we didn't get to really introduce ourselves. So we said since we're talking about transitions and transition zones, and this will be a perfect opportunity for us to each kind of tell a little bit about ourselves, give a little testimony. Give a little testimony. I'm trying to make sure. All right, so I guess I'll
And
be the
click
one
like
to
and
start.
share. Please click like and share. Please tune in.
Please like and share. Oh, I'm trying to see if I. Ah, okay. So, well, I'll introduce those that don't know me. Those that know me, I'm Liz. I'm the one of the baby sisters. Okay, so born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Lived there probably now we can say half and half life. So mother in the church, grew up in the church, got saved at a young age, backslide a couple times. Um, but we said we want to be very transparent. So people we want people to get something, to learn something, and to be able to be inspired and know that that we have been through different walks of life. So mother in church, raised us in church. We was in church. My mom was pregnant with me when she went into labor. So born and raised in Chicago. Dad, gang banger, drug dealer. That's what it was. But he was there for us. He loved us. I went on and went to school. Graduated high school at 16 years old. Went to college. Um, got into a little, a little something. Was hey, my dad was the drug dealer, so I dated the drug dealers. I dated the gang bangers. So I got into a little trouble. So I ended up joining the military. Went on to the military, and life started to begin to change. So I ended up joining the military, served at 8 years in the military. Went on, ended up getting married at a young age. I have four beautiful children, soon to be an empty nester. And from there, went on many, turned my life back over to God, went on many missions trips and did many different things. Ended up getting my bachelor's degree in business, went up getting my master's degree in business, worked in banking for years. Then I decided to have a transition to start teaching. Right now, in the next couple months, I'll be finished with my doctorate program. So we'll be changing a transition name to doctor. So just a little bit about myself on the last. So after was married for 18 years, was divorced. So been for it's been a while now. So been in a relationship on and off for the last 10 years. So that's a little bit about myself. Go ahead, sister.
Okay, some know me as Audrey, also known as Smart Nurse 38. Um, Same as here, grew up in the city of Chicago. Um, my life took a different turn. It's something different than my sister. She went the more traditional way. Um, she went more traditional way. I was, I was, I grew up. We grew up in the same household, but however, I had my first child. I was 15 years old. I had my second at 17, and then I had my third one at 23. We talking about transition. So I dropped out of high school when I was like 16, 17 years old. Dropped out of high school, ended up going back in my late 20s. Went back in my late 20s. Got my GED, ended up going back to school to become a nurse. I became an LPN. Then I went back years later. I'm a registered nurse right now. I got my bachelor's. I ended up getting married. I got married probably maybe almost 15 years ago. I got divorced. Um, and some transition, and also Some know got married again, and unfortunately, um, that didn't work as well. So um, that's why we talking about transition, just the way to navigate, navigate how we are navigating through things that people don't talk about. I would say because for me, I'm just gonna say for me, the biggest transition that I went to, that I went through, which was recently, which was had me and my sister talk about these type of transitions. And I think for me, the biggest thing was navigating people. When you're navigating people in the midst of a transition, when you're navigating what people's perceptions of you are. You're navigating what people think things supposed to be. Then you're navigating. You have expectations of yourself. So I think this is something that really was important for us to talk about because a lot of these things are very cliche, and then us as growing up, I would say that our faith, us growing up in church, us growing up navigating being saved women, being at the point where I backslid for a long time, and went back, maybe a couple times or whatever. And these are things that we need to talk about, things that they don't say. So, while we are talking about that, I'll go ahead and I'm gonna come back because I'm really starting to get riled up as we talk about transition and um myself. I'm just gonna share my transition part for me. The transition that I just had, like I said, I had got married, everybody was a part of it, my family was here and everything. And unfortunately, due to things of that he had going on, I had to make a decision that was which was the best decision. And I think my first concern more than anything was how God felt about it. Because we know growing up, all these different beliefs and everything, what people say about marriage. And what they say is supposed to be, what is supposed to be, what is that. So for me, I kind of understood when you have people that are the when you have stars, when they're going through critical times in their life and they have the social media, they have the paparazzi, and they're trying to navigate real life situations in the midst of real life situations of being in the spotlight. So for me, it was like everybody know this just happened, but not everybody knowing it's just no more. And unfortunately, for me, I had to make a decision because my thing is, and that's for me and that's for anybody else, when we are in life transitions, it's just certain things for me, for my situation, it was you can't put before me what you didn't put before God. You can't put before me what you didn't lay before the Father's feet. So you can't expect me to hold something that you didn't even give God to hold. So in that, a decision had to be made. And from my previous marriage, I always made the decision that I was going to choose me over anything else. And in this situation, I decided that I was going to choose me. So I thank God for just having the courage because in these type of situations, it's difficult. And I thank God that He gave me the courage to be able to navigate the situation. And also, not only that, but also in the transition, the position that I was in, I thank God for the people in my life, my sisters, my other sisters, my friends that knew their position. I think it's important that we know our position in a transition with other people. You need to know your transition. You need to know your position when other people are transitioning. No matter how you feel about how they transition, no matter what you think about how they transition, because I'm gonna be honest, we can have some strong opinions about other people's transitions. But my thing is, if I didn't have people that were around me that actually knew their position in my transition, I don't think that I would have been able to go through it. So, that's just kind of my spiel as it relates to my recent transition that I went through. And like I said, you got to know your position in somebody else's transition. You know, you got to know because that is going to be key to how they navigate. Because we can't think that everything is always about us.
Right.
We can't always think that just because the other person is going through something, and some things may be hard because you know what? What I found out, because it's not us, then we'll be like,
Very
well,
opinionated.
if it was
I
me,
would
and
do.
I'm gonna be honest, you don't know a situation until you in it. Now go ahead, sister.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, wait. I'm trying to hit you. I'm trying to hit it live. Ooh.
Oh, so I think that was a big thing for me. And I really appreciate the positions of the people that was in my life while I was going through this transition. And it's something because when we talk about transition, it's a scripture that came to mind we talking about when it talk about position. We talking about being in your position in transition. And that is Ecclesiastes 3 and 1. To everything there is a season and a time, every purpose under the heaven. So that means you got to know the season. You got to know your position, as he say, in season, out of season. You got to know your position. Period. You need
That's
to know
right.
your position in other people's transition. I think that's kind of one of my biggest things as it relates to transition.
Yeah. And then with transition, it's really about how you going through something and how you're dealing with it, and how to cope with it. No one, you don't get when things happen in life. A lot of us, most of us, we don't get a manual on how to do it. Just the same when we have kids. New, I don't care how many books out there, you still don't know until you actually go through it. You don't know. So, like you said, you have to know your position in others and other situation because sometimes you don't want to ever overstep. You don't know. It's like I said, some people know, some people don't know. And it's best because you're not that person, you're not that individual. So sometimes it's good to leave your opinion because normally you don't really know the whole truth, the whole story, or anything of the situation. So sometimes it's best to just pray, give less of your opinion, stand for what's right at the end of the day. And that's what a lot of people have trouble with too. When they're helping people through their transition, is not, are you sure you standing for the right thing? Are you sure you upholding the right thing? Are you sure you're giving the right type of advice, if it's even wanted? You know? So, and I know even it's like we could go through so many different transitions in our lives. And it's how one thing I've had when I when- um so one thing I noticed, like when one thing I've noticed, when I went through my voice divorce, I went through counseling. I made sure my kids have a little counseling.
Going in and out a little bit.
I'm
You
going in
going
and
in
out.
and out.
Can you
Yeah,
hear me
you
now?
fine. Now sometimes the enemy gonna act up because when we get to start talking about the real life issues, you know how that start happening. But go ahead.
But even when I went through the divorce and everything, I went through counseling and took my children through counseling. And the one thing she said, she was like, "You're so resilient." Um, but it's just learning by my faith, growing up, seeing my mother go through things and still overcoming and pushing through things. I guess I have adapted that. It doesn't mean I had to tell someone the other day. I said, just because I am very resilient and you don't see me wallowing in self-pity doesn't mean I don't hurt. Doesn't mean that I don't feel the pain, or doesn't mean that I don't cry sometimes. I do, but I don't sit there and I don't hold it. I try to do things in the transition. I get myself up. I make sure I look good. I make sure I feel good. I make sure I do things to make myself healthy on the inside. I try to read. I don't try. I read my scriptures. I give me daily devotions. I pray. I pray for those that don't do me right. I pray for those that speak things against me, because that's just that's just what was instilled in me. And we've been through a lot of different things, even a transition as myself that I was going through this last um within the last few months in my relationship, but even in that, I'm not going to really speak too much on that, because that's a whole nother subject, because it's not, oh, things are not completely, or whatever. But anything that, any type of relationship, friendship, whatever, you go through your trials, you go through your tribulations. But you got to know that who got your back. You got to know who the Father is. You got to know where you stand and who you are in God. No matter what you go through, He gonna take us through it. He gonna carry us through it. And life happens sometimes. It just happens. It happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of it. It happens. Some things happen that we have control of, and some things happen that we don't have control of. But whenever you're transitioning through that life, everyone, all of us feel the same. We just in different situations. And we begin to talk, and me and her began, my sister began to talk about how that happens on the inside, those feelings that we have on the inside. It's real. Those hormones, those are chemicals that happen with inside us that we all, I may didn't, you may lost a child, you may lost a job, you may just got a new child, but those hormones work similar in your stress levels.
Yeah, that's like I'm sorry, I'm just still getting over cold. But when we talking about the hormone, so cortisol, that's the stress hormone. And what cortisol triggers in breakups. So that's why a lot of times you gain weight, because now you have triggered your cortisol level, and it has begun to increase. So that means for all of us, the weight will start coming on. Rather, it could be a breakup from an individual, it could be a transition, leaving your life to somewhere else that you know, coming to a new space. Uh, your cortisol level, uh, you know, that type of thing. Yes, that's true. Um, and I think, Angela, that's why I was talking about knowing your position in other people's transition. So your circle is important. When you who you around, who is who is in your ear gates, who's talking to you, who is saying things to you. Because I'm gonna be honest, sometimes we just don't be saying the right thing. We just
Oh,
be
now,
saying everything out of our mouth.
and you
And I
have to
know
be,
I have been guilty of it as well. And it's not to be insensitive, but we also have to remember yeah, we also have to remember what that the other person is not us. I think a lot of times I struggle with that, because we have to remember, um I would say this. I was raised with my father instilling a lot of confidence, our mother stealing
yeah.
a lot of comments. You got to click on the chat part, sister. I stealing on a lot of stuff in us. So sometimes when people have grown up in a different with a different background and different things like that, it may not be to the extent that you have it. So you have to extend grace in some areas. And I had to learn that on the way. And I really learned that down through me having um, different friendships, my close friends, navigating their challenges and different things like that. It really taught me a lot about myself and how I show up for them. And it's crazy because how I show up for them, it really just helped me. And so a lot of times I have to do a self check when my sisters, when those that count on me and I'm that ear, I have to do a self check on how I'm processing their transition to make sure that I'm showing up appropriately and officially and just being there with them.
Mhm. It is. Your circle is so important. You have to have people that one thing about I say I feel like I don't want anyone in my circle that can't tell me the truth. If you love a person, you're gonna tell them the truth. You're gonna tell the truth. If you really love me, you're gonna tell me the truth, whether it hurts me, where it feel bad. And I don't want you to sugarcoat anything for me. I'm tough. I'll be all right. Say I man up. I take the L. I'd rather for you to be honest with me because when you love me, you're gonna make sure that I'm in the right place. I'm not an error, that I'm in the right place that I need to be. Even if I'm hurting because someone hurt me, but then you can all a friend, a circle, a sister that really have your back, even when they know you've been wrong. They'll tell you, well, you could have did this. You saw this coming. Now you know they're not there to kick you, but they're there to tell you, to help you and guide you to see things in a different light, in a different perspective. So you can't have people that basically they like they say you were quick to tell me what's wrong with mine, but you ain't even worked yours out. You have a lot of opinion on what's going over here, but you don't even got your stuff straight.
Look, and then you asking me to do something that you ain't gonna even do.
You went, come on. You said I wait a minute. Okay, I love this. I'm glad we brought this up. I'm glad you asked. Say it. Okay, we're gonna say it. Well, you say I wouldn't take that. But look what you are taking. Look what you are doing. Wait a minute, just because you may not do this, or you're at a level that you've grown to where, hey, you can do this now. You don't know what you may be put in a position that you have. It may take you a little bit more time to handle this. It may take you a little bit more time to do this.
Uh-huh.
So we have to have grace on people and grace on each other, and you have to have grace on yourself as you transition. Because, like I said, we get no manual on when things happen. Sometimes things happen, so we won't go through it again. But thank God for grace and mercy. Because if it wasn't for repentance, a lot of us probably would have been gone a long time ago. Because we make the same mistakes over and over again. Because sometimes we think with our heart and not our head. Through different transitions, even with you getting a new job. I'm tired of this job. Now God and bless you with this job. You didn't got all the conveniences, but because somebody said something to you didn't like, now I need a new job. Then God said, okay, I'm gonna get a new job. And then the job that you get is more hell. Now you gotta deal with this transit. Sit here because you need your bills paid. You gotta feed your children. But
Uh-huh.
if you would have just had patience and dealt with with that transition you was in, you already had it good where you was at. But God allow us to sometimes He'll give you what you want.
And then sometimes we have to be in a place of transition because sometimes we don't want to move that old thing because we so used to it. Be
Do
so
it.
because we have become familiar with it because our hormones have embodied this thing and we
Crazy.
don't want it craves it and we don't want to allow God to show us to show us the new. And what's that in Isaiah? He said, behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. So a lot of times, because we have been come, I know I have had strong soul ties. And it just was like, it just wouldn't break. It's like I just didn't want to break. It's like those hormones, oxytocin, and those dopamine, like they was just working together to keep me in such a place.
Yeah, and you know
Burn.
what? And like when we talk about the harm,
It puts the crane up there. I'm gonna need him to get it.
and you know one thing that I was when I was looking at one of the hormones, it's the
Mm-hmm.
adrenaline. A lot of people forget about the adrenaline. The adrenaline, that's when you get that adrenaline comes in when it's a fight or flight. And that's how even when like let's say you go through a break, you know how some girls go crazy. They find out the guy cheating, they go run the cars up them, they go do all this crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? She's like, I mean, I've been there before years ago. I didn't been delivered. Let me tell you, I've been delivered. I mean, but that show you, but that transition. But let me tell you what, that been there, done that. But that transition, when you start to mature in who you are, and you be so Let me tell you what, that stuff like that happen to you, devil, you lie. You keep trying to give it. You'll sit back and you'll see, you watch. You'll be looking like Lord, and it's nothing. That don't mean you don't hurt. That doesn't mean you don't feel it. It just means I'm at a place, at a peace within me. So even if I love you and you don't love me enough to do right by me, I'm at peace with me. I'm not. I got too much to lose. Let me tell you something. When you go to school as much as I do, and you work as hard as I do, baby, ain't nobody about to make me lose what I got going on. I work too hard for where I am. But that hormone works within people. And if you start to understand how your body works, I was on to work today. And you know what, I prayed today. I was on my way to work today and I said, God, I said, help me to be slow to speak and swift to hear. I said, Lord, give me wisdom to make decisions out of wisdom and not out of emotion. And sometimes, God, I tell you what, I told my best friend, I said, wow, I was tested today. I said, because I wanted to do something out of my emotion, but the spirit said, I said, I got you. I told you what I promised you. I know what you prayed for. You got to sit back and let me work it out. And I just came on and I had to do breathing exercises. And I was like, I was breathing in and I was breathing out. And I'm like, come down. Because that was a part of transition that I've been dealing with. And I'm like, oh, as soon as I speak God, give me wisdom how to deal with things using wisdom and not my emotions. Right then and there, I was tested on it. I passed it though. I passed that
I
test.
think that goes to, I was looking up just different scriptures about transition, and it's something that you said that because it goes to trust in the Lord with all thy heart.
Mm-hmm.
Lean not to
Not
thy
too much.
own understanding. In all thy ways, acknowledge him and he'll direct our path. So that's like a perfect example
Yep.
of you got to trust in him. When I say you got to trust in him, when I say you got to trust in him, you got to trust in God. And what we need to know is that your trust don't look like my trust.
Not trust. Come on. It don't.
How you gonna trust in him is maybe different than how I'm gonna trust in him,
Right.
depending on the situation and the circumstances.
And then depend
Period.
on what you've been through.
What you've been through, your
Because faith,
level of trust. There's levels to this. There's levels to the trust. There's levels to it. You
yep.
know.
And it's like he said, what was the Bible? And if I misquoted this, I'm gonna paraphrase. It said, "Faith upon faith, precept." So as we grow in faith, as
Oh,
God
Angie.
do one thing, you got it for me. As we grow, look, as we grow in faith, every time God do something, that should build our faith. So maybe I have been believing what God's saying. I see it happen and manifest, and then it's gonna give me. So you may not be where I'm at, but if you just a little size of, he said, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can speak to the mountain until it be thou removed. So it's just how we see God work in our lives. And even then, I'm gonna be honest and be transparent. God has been, let me tell you something, God has been so good to me. God has saved my life. God has saved my child life. God has broke me when somebody else would have probably went crazy in the nut house. God kept my mind. And even with all the things I know has done for me, it's still times that comes and I'll be like, oh Lord, are you gonna do this? And then he has to remind me, didn't I just do that for you? Do you remember when I did this for you? You remember when you went through this transition and I brought you through? What you think that I can't bring you through again? And then we still have to check ourselves and be like, oh God, you're right. You did do it.
Mhm.
When I know people that have been through less than what I've been through and they've lost their mind, they're taking anxiety medication, depression medication, and I'm just holding on to the faith and I'm just believing and I'm speaking things into my life. Even if I don't see it right now, I know that it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that I know we got a couple of our viewers. We got some of our viewers on here. If you would like to share a testimony, be transparent about your and would like to join us up here to Tell your testimony. We about spilling the truth. We about testimonies that transform. So if you would like to join in, you can drop your email in the chat, and I'll send you a invite, and you can come up and share and be at a level of transparency about a transition you may have had. How you've overcome, how you navigated it, and maybe the Lord will help us give wisdom because we all here on a healing journey from something. And we have to be able to help each other because we know in this world right now there's a lot of lack of love. Excuse me. But like I said, if you viewing this and you would like to come up and be one of our guests this evening, I'll drop your email in the chat, and I will send you an invite. Or if you don't want to do it tonight, you can email us. Let me tell you, you can inbox us. You can inbox us. But if you would like to come up tonight, please do drop your email in the chat, and I will send you an invite, and you can come up. Okay. Okay, so we'll go back to oh, she found it. Isaiah 28 and 10. I told you she'll do it. Yeah, and then even, navigating transitions, like
And even on your
on your what?
go ahead.
Go ahead. What you say?
No, I was like even how you transition on your
You say on your job?
like you said you on your job
Oh yeah, transition on
and
your job. Well, sometimes we don't even say it, but when I tell you, you go through multiple transitions on your job. You go through you transition in people,
leadership.
leadership. You hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. You transition in leadership. You transitioning your coworkers that's coming in and out. You transitioning new things that they are implementing.
and we deal with that in education all the time because it's always the people that are not in the classroom that want to tell you what you need to do.
Oh, yeah,
But it's a transition.
but it's a transition. I think one of the hardest things navigating in the workplace is when you are a person that wants things to be done right and it's not done fairly.
Yep,
And what I
absolutely,
always say is, do you know we got broken people that's leading us?
absolutely.
So that means we got broken people that's leading us. We got broken people that
Nene crushy food to my little my PTO thing.
you hear me?
She told me that's why I use my sick
I know you got
facts.
broke people, and so I always say you had broke people bringing other people in the world. So then they broke, then they become your teachers, they become your doctors, they become your nurses, they become your bus
Yep,
driver, they become your Uber driver, they become your gym instructor. They become all these things. And then you trying to navigate transition and you got all these people with all these issues. I think that's why healing, if you notice, has really come in place in the last 10 to 15 years where you kind of hear it a lot. But trying to transition all these people, you be like, oh my God, you be tired.
losing, losing, and even like with my career with being a teacher, like sometimes I have been through so many things, and I had to come in the classroom, and I still had to be there for them, not just to educate them, but a lot of times we sat in my classroom. I mean, I'll post some stuff that my students like they feel they can talk to me about pretty much anything, and sometimes you have to be available for them, and you're going through stuff, and you have situations that's going on, and you have to put what you've been going through to the side because you see that someone needs you better more than you do, and these are young people. So it's like I've been young. So now I have to take on like whatever I got going. It's not important. I have to keep that to the side, because I may have to help this person on to transition from what they got going on, or they're in the midst of transition. Oh, you said when I lean back and go out. Can you hear me? Okay.
But you know what? It made me think about how about the transition within the transition.
Mm,
It made me go back to, I was telling somebody, I went over to where, let me take my candy out. Went over to, now think about this. Can you imagine? So went over to when David was he was transitioning. So basically at this day and time, we would call it, he was in like palliative care or hospice care, just say, right? So David was transitioning, okay? Now, in the process of David transitioning, he got to make his son king, which was Solomon, right? So now, in the midst of this, Solomon is, so this Solomon, my father dying, okay? You can hear me?
yeah.
Okay. My father dying.
When you lean back.
Okay, when I lean back too. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
my father is dying. So this Solomon, my father dying. I got my brother Ajani. I think it's Ajani. He's over here saying that he's about to be king. He throwing a party because he's saying I'm
Mm,
finna be king. Okay. So you got, and then now on top of that, you was told that you was gonna be king. Can you
hmm,
imagine what type of stuff Solomon was going on in the process of all of that? And then
mm,
after that, so my father died. My brother over here talking about he finna be king. Now at the same time, my father told me that I was gonna be king. And then this is where it go to know your position. So then his mother, and I think one of the soldiers or something, came to Bathsheba and told her, you need to go and tell David. So guess what? She was in the right position in the midst of Solomon's transition because now he's supposed to be transitioning to king. So now she had to go and tell David, hey, you said that my son was going to be king. However, Ashana, I think I can't pronounce it, but he's over there saying that he's going to be king. Now, in the process, David is dying. And so what made me think about it was, and then in the process of that, then you was made king, and then in the process of your father transitioning, he's telling you the expectations for you to be able to run the kingdom as God wants you to run it. I said, oh my God, I can't even imagine. So he was transitioning in the process. So Solomon was in this all these transitions going at the same time. And you know the one thing that I say when I read that I saw that he listened to his father and he was the wisest man.
right. He was.
He was the
He was. That's because he asked the Father for wisdom before riches,
asked.
and God gave him wisdom and riches.
So what I learned was
And
wisdom to navigate life changes, life transitions. Wisdom
yep.
to
And the thing about I love when you said that about when the being in the position, and see, you have to be us as believers. If you're saying you're a believer, oh, I believe in God, and I'm a child of God. Okay, okay. Well, let's test it. If this is what you say, I love how you said his wife, David's wife, had to go tell. Sometimes you have to make sure that you're giving the right instructions and the right information when you go tell it. Because your information and your instructions may cause somebody to fall or be in the wrong place where they shouldn't be. You have to make sure, as a man, woman, child of God, that when there's transition going on, am I giving the right instruction to the person that I'm supposed to be giving it to? Am I being led by God? Is what I'm saying, is that God? Am I giving the right information? Am I telling them the right thing so they can be in the will of God? Am I? And I love the transition. You went to the end, but if you go over to the beginning of David's life, the transition, we talk about our careers and work. David was in the field. He was tending to the sheep. Just imagine you a farmer and you about to go to the palace. That's a huge transition. I mean, that's a transition that you have to, but only God can equip you. And I was riding to, and this is all coincide. And they say sometimes, and I remember right here in Columbia, we have a pastor named Pastor Daryl Jackson. He said something years ago. And I always say this every day when I get up. I say the favor of God is like a shield around me. Let me tell you what, favor ain't always fair. He said sometimes favor ain't fair. And even through our transition, God can have favor on your life to where while you working through these transitions, he'll take you through it. He'll lead you, he'll guide you, he'll comfort you. When people think you're supposed to be sad and crying, because see, I know what God promised me. And I know what God said and spoke to me. And I know what I asked God for. He said all things are possible to him that believe. And I can ask anything in his name and he's going to perform it. So just because my faith seems crazy to you when I'm going through this transition, like, well, what? Well, she should be doing this. Well, why you want that? And why you going? Don't ask me why. That's none of your business. This is my faith. This is what I believe God for. This is why I know that, hey, I got to make this transition to the next place. And even in the midst of transition, God gonna take me through it, even if it feel like it's a little hard. It's a little challenging. You may lose some friends. You may have people that's gonna talk about you behind your back. Maybe people gonna say some things about you when they shouldn't be opening their mouth and saying nothing at all because they don't even know the situation in its entirety. But in spite of that, hey, the favor of God is a shield around me. Favor ain't gonna be fair. That's why you can see me grow and you can see me prospering. Why she ain't? And she ain't, because the favor ain't fair. And God knows our heart. And that's one thing I love about God. Like, he knows who's his. That's why when people are going through transitions, be careful what you say about them. Be careful how you put their name in your mouth and what you assuming or accusing them of. You better be careful because you don't know who God's least one is. You don't know who you. If some people, because they're in situations, they're in places, they don't have healing, they don't have blessings because they putting their mouth on people God love. On the God got favor on that person. That's one of God's least one. And you're supposed to be praying, helping them through transition. You're supposed to be praying, Lord, Lord, I hate they going through this, but Lord, take them through. Let me be a help to them. And people will sit there, like I said, who's in your transition is important. You better be careful how you help people in the transition. Will you be giving advice and be wrong advice? You be telling them that they need to do this and be wrong. Oh, well, this person should do this, or this person should be with that person. And you just as wrong as two left shoes, and God ain't led you to do nothing and say nothing, but you're doing it.
I think that's a good point. I think that's a good point. That I thought about was people be giving advice a lot of times from their rejection.
Now you're talking.
Your advice from a healed place and how you play your position in a person's transition from a healed place is totally different than how you play your position when you coming from a place of rejection, trauma. How you show up for people is different. So when you showing up from people, when you from a place of trauma and a place of when you're not healed, you're that person that's saying, I don't know what's that's for. Yeah, yeah. And then you the get along game when you coming out of when you get along with somebody with trauma. You always, you giving advice. Oh yeah, and then you with the foolishness. What I learned was
That's what I'm talking about.
yes, when you are in a position, in a person's transition, when you are from coming from a healed place, how you handle them is totally different. Even if you know they wrong, even if you know they struggling, how you handle people is so important. I think that's one of the things that I can't wait till we talk about is how people handle people. How you handle a person in
Yeah.
transition is so key. That's why I think it's so important. Before we start putting ourselves in places with people, do the work for yourself. Seek God for yourself. That's why I made the statement about my own transition and my own situation that unfortunately didn't work out because you got to lay your problems. You can't lay your problems and your things at my feet. You ain't laid them at the Father's feet.
That's it.
If you ain't laid them before Jesus, I'm not going to let you lay them before me because I'm not him. Now, there
Mhm.
are some things that we help each other heal through, and there's a process. But some stuff it's only for God to do. And I am not trying to be.
Yes.
So therefore, I feel like we need to be in a place where we have healed to where we can be there for other people. Do the work. Be careful because sometimes advice comes from a broken place. It comes
And it's not God.
and it's not God. And now, granted, now my belief is that God has given us a level of wisdom that we should have because we have walked with Him for so long, and because we have put ourselves
Mm.
before Him in prayer, and because we have read the Word, that there is a certain level of wisdom that we're just going to have because the Father has given it to us. But you got to be careful when you giving out advice and you standing in position in people's transitions and you off. You got to be careful.
Exactly. And I
To
know
lead people off dead off the cliff.
that's right. And I was talking to one friend, and I was telling her, I said, it's crazy because some people don't realize that you're saying things and you're giving it. Sometimes it's best to just shut up and be an ear to people because you really are not in a place to tell people this or that, especially if you're not going to uphold the right. And it doesn't matter if it's mama, daddy, child, sister, brother, auntie, uncle. If I see that you're making a transition in life, and wait a minute, like this don't like come on, something ain't right with this. Cause as as us being family or friends and people that I love, period. You ain't got to be my family. Somebody I love, period. If I see you going down the wrong road, if I see what you're doing is toxic or something, no, I'm gonna wait a minute. Hold on. You may not like what I say, but I'm gonna tell you what's right. And I'm gonna tell you, first of all, I'm a praying like God. And a lot of times this is what I do when I talk to people and they start, I need to tell you something. I be praying in the midst of them talking because I say, God, I want to say the right thing. I want to give them the right information of what you want me to give them because at the end, even if I love my sister, if my sister know, my friends know, even if I love you and you say something and you ha 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 rant and you upset, and I'ma still come on down and I'ma tell you if I see you wrong, I'ma tell you wrong. And I tell you I love you, but you didn't do that right. You see how your life is turned. You see what's happening? It's happening because it is. I'm not coming to judge them, but I'm coming to tell them because I want what's best for you. And see, that's how you know when you say when you're working in a broken place, you're not, sometimes people are not doing it on purpose, but because you're broken, you're giving people the wrong direction. You're not you're not giving them the right direction. You're telling them the wrong things because you're in a broken place. And sometimes people are in a jealous state of themselves because in their you may have something good that's going on for you, and then you mess it up. And instead of me telling you and encouraging you, baby, that's good for you. Instead of me telling you that, that's right, people switch up on you. Instead of me telling you that's good for you, I'm like, well, you know what? If that's what you want, you know what? You do what makes you happy. No, that's the worst thing you can tell people when they're in a wrong state. Do what makes you happy. No, do what's right because if you do what's right, eventually it's gonna make you happy. I remember a millionaire I was watching, and he said, "You if you can take the right now pain, you're gonna have a long life of success. But if you want to take the easy way out right now, the easy feel good right now, you're gonna have a lifelong full of pain. So we gotta be careful how we if we're in a broken place or we're not really you gotta put that down. And you got to ask God, Lord, help me to say the right thing to this person, because people be going leading folks in the stray, and people take your advice and think it's gold, and they wrong, and you ain't making it no better. You're not helping them. You're not helping them to change. You know that they wrong. You know that they not right for what they did, but you'll uphold them in their right. And people won't. And a lot of times, some people will feel validated in their wrong because of what someone else told them. Oh yeah, it's okay. Just do what makes you happy. Just do. I'm for whatever you for. Whatever you for. I'm for. You so wrong in error. And people are really thinking. Sometimes people need to get that truth, that naked truth, so they can be able to change, because they don't see themselves, because they got people pacifying them and validating their wrongdoing. What you got to say about that, sister?
Wow. It'd be a lot of that going on. People be
It's a lot of that going on.
it'd be a lot of that going on.
And you know what? And I remember my bishop, he told us, FBH, he said, let me say something. He said, we don't turn people out the church because we don't love them. He said, we turn them out so they can see themselves. Sometimes it could be my child. My kids know, I'm going to tell you straight up. Even if I didn't do everything right, I'm going to tell you, because I don't want you to make the mistakes I made. If it's my mama, my sister, my brother, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you what's right so you can get it right. I don't want you to keep walking in the same patterns, the same things, and you don't get it right.
But it's something, because some transitions, some of our transitions, we're gonna probably go through. Some people in life, you're gonna go through the same transitions. And if I have went to a similar transition, don't you think I'm gonna give you the wisdom that you need to help you navigate the transition? But what I found out is that people is that a lot of times people, because they walk in so much pride and arrogance, they don't have a spirit of humility, that they don't want to hear, that they don't want to take your advice. A lot of times people assume what they think they know about you, and not knowing that you navigated a certain situation with poise, with peace. You know what I'm saying? That you giving them the tools that they need. I'm sorry, but if you tell me that I'm about to transition from the curb to the street, but you telling me I already
And I'm
went
gonna
that way. If you go that way, it's a certain truck that come around at the same time with the same color all the time. You probably don't want to step down now, but you tell me, oh no, that was when you was going. That was when you was around. That's when you. The Bible said there's nothing new up under the sun.
you about to be newly hit.
You about to be newly hit, and you step down, and bam, there it is.
That's it.
I'm sorry, but I don't believe experience got to always be a teacher for me.
I know that's the truth.
I'm sorry. Some stuff I just need you to tell me, hey, no, you probably may not want to, you probably should navigate this way. But experience is a good teacher, but wisdom says I don't need to have an experience all the time for me to know. That's just like
That part.
you a teacher. You're teaching them things. They don't know nothing about what happened 15, 20 years ago. You're teaching them so they can know. But they wasn't there. You're getting knowledge. The Bible talks about us getting knowledge. We have to get knowledge. So this ain't nothing in money.
And the one,
It's going fine.
yeah, yeah. And the one thing I say, if I would want to leave with everyone today, um, I would want to leave, pray, especially us that's professing being a child of God, Christians. If you're not, if you just, I believe in God, but I'm not, I ain't ready to turn my life over, but I believe in Him. I ask you to pray for discernment. Ask God to give you a spirit of discernment, to give you a spirit of wisdom, to be able to, when you transition through life, and then when you're helping someone transition, if they're going through a situation, a circumstance, ask God to give you discernment to see things for what they really are, to make sure that you're given the right insight. Make sure what your insight is what is God's will. It's God's will. Cause like I told once, I told my friend, I said, when if I love you, I don't care if you're my friend or not. When don't I want the best for you? When I stop wanting the best for you, there's something wrong with me. I need to check my meter. I need to make sure that I don't have a spirit of jealousy or a spirit of, like you say, I'm broken to where I don't want to see you have something really good, or even feel like, even if the person may not do everything good, but don't you feel like everybody deserves to have something good? We don't know when what that may something good may help that person, may take them to another place, another level. Like, I pray and I ask God to help those that come see this video, that's watching. Ask God to give you a spirit of discernment that you'll be able, when people come through transitions, when you go through transition, God help me to make sure I'm going in the right direction and I'm leading someone in the right direction. I'm leading in the right direction because I don't want to lead somebody astray. I don't want someone to be still in a mess when they could have been out if I just told them the truth. If I was honest with them and told them what they look like in the situation, or you're going in a direction that is wrong, or you transitioning because you have made some bad choices. You know,
Mhm.
I just pray that for. I pray that. I pray that for those that's listening, those that view this and see that, you know what? Maybe I need to really evaluate what I told people. Lord, forgive me, because maybe I have not been where I should have been or told the right thing to someone, and they're not. And people don't. You don't know what people got in their heart and in their mind. People be listening to you because they feel, oh, they may look up to you, and you telling them wrong. But God,
You know, it I'm gonna find the scripture to go with what you saying. Over in Ecclesiastes, he said,
thank
he said, I applied my heart. Ecclesiastics, it is, I think, 7:25. I applied my heart to know and to search and to seek out wisdom and the reason of things and to know the wickedness of folly, even of foolishness and madness. That covered it all.
you. That covered it all. Some people
It's
it's foolishness.
all the what? I remember my previous pastor, he taught us, he said, you always want to know the what, the when, the where, the why, and the who.
The-
You always want to know those things. And I apply that to a lot of things, which helps you be able to navigate situations, problems, and circumstances. So I know we getting close to a close. I don't know if our viewers is I don't know if I was here last week. However, we did pick two winners randomly, and these are our winners on the screen. So if they're not on here, we are going to inbox them and let them know that they did win a Sister Spill cup. And we will be mailing it to them. So congratulations, Lenora House Carter and Natalie Neely. Natalie Neely was our she was our YouTube viewer last week. Carter was our Facebook viewer from last week. So we will be inboxing you guys to get your information so we can send you your cup. So
Yay.
any last words? Because we're about to go.
Only last words I have to say: love and light, the favor of God surrounds us like a shield.
And I will say, get wisdom and seek the Father for life transitions. Stay tuned next week for the Sister Spill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yo, 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 yo. I play my enemies like a game of chess where I rest. No stress.